Hello and welcome to Stay for Dinner, a podcast of cooking, curiosity, and conversation. If you love cooking, if you hate cooking, if you don't know how you feel about cooking because you've never tried it before, congratulations, you're in the right place. And the place right now, as always, is my small apartment kitchen in Los Angeles. And I am so excited for this week's episode. If you guys have been listening for the past few weeks, you know that my guest has been Haley Hepworth, comedian, writer, performer, person I'm married to, and quarantine co-pilot. And we're going to be doing something a little bit different on the show this week, which is we will be doing an ingredient draft. We have a list of some ingredients that we have in our apartment pantry and fridge, and we will be drafting them like they do in sports. We're going to end up with a team of 6 ingredients each that we can use. And then on a future episode, each of us is going to cook those dishes on the show, and you can ride along with that. And then we're going to eat them, and then we're going to figure out who wins. And today on the show, in addition to drafting ingredients, we're also going to figure out how we're going to figure out who wins, given that the two of us, the competitors, are the only people that can actually taste the dishes. But either way, no matter what, it's going to be awesome, and I'm super excited. And I'm also super excited about what I'm going to make that we're going to eat while we draft our ingredients. More than anything in the world, I love chicken, and I love roast chicken in particular. I love roasting chickens, and I am going to be making a famous roast chicken recipe on the show today. Marcella Hazan, who is kind of the Julia Child of Italian cooking. What Julia Child was for French cooking in America, Marcella Hazan was for Italian cooking. And she has a couple of very canonical, famous recipes that get passed around and reprinted on food websites and in newspapers and all over the place. And I really like this one recipe that she has. It's a famous recipe of hers that's just literally called roast chicken with lemons. And it's called that because you're just stuffing 2 lemons with a bunch of holes poked in them inside the cavity of a whole chicken, and then you're roasting it. I'm really excited to have a chicken. We haven't really had chicken in any form since the beginning of shelter in place, and I am stoked. I love roasting chickens. It's just the most, I don't know, the effort to reward ratio is just super duper high, and it's the kind of thing where even if you don't hit it perfectly, you're going to end up with something delicious that you're really excited about, I think. And I just wanted to read the description of the recipe from the actual. So I had heard, I read about Marcella Hazan, I'm not sure how you say it. I'm probably butchering that pronunciation. And in Counterpoint Books, on the same block as the UCB Franklin Theater, I found the book in the store and I was like, oh my God, this is great. It's like $2. This is fantastic. And around that same time, my wife's folks had gotten us some dishes, and we opened up the dishes and realized that the book came free with the dishes as well. So I ended up with 2 copies, but really, really like this book. It's like super old-fashioned giant cookbook with very few images. It's really, really neat. And anyway, her description of this recipe: roast chicken with lemons. If this were a still life, its title could be Chicken with 2 Lemons. That is all there is in it. No fat to cook with, no basting to do, no stuffing to prepare, no condiments except for salt and pepper. After you put the chicken in the oven, you turn it just once. The bird, its 2 lemons, in the oven, do all the rest. Again and again, through the years, I meet people who come up to me to say, I have made your chicken with 2 lemons. And it is the most amazingly simple recipe. The juiciest, best tasting chicken I have ever had. And it is perfectly true. Marcella Hazan really given herself her own flowers. You have to appreciate it. And having made this before, I have to agree. It's a really, really good roast chicken, and I'm excited to be making it. Come along with me, won't you? I'm doing one step much earlier in the day, and if I really had had my druthers, I would have done it last night if I had thought about it. Which is not officially a step in the actual Marcella original recipe, but it is one that I have adopted just as a practice in terms of cooking whole chickens, which is seasoning it well in advance. In this case, I'm probably going to be cooking in like 2 or 3 hours from now. If I had thought about it, I would have done it last night. That would have been great, because basically when you season this far in advance, it gives the salt a chance to kind of like work in deeper than just the surface, which tenderizes the chicken. It makes it more flavorful and moist when you ultimately cook it, gives you more latitude for cooking it and not overcooking it, which is going to be great because our meat thermometer is broken and I don't know when we're going to get a new one. So I'm going to have to evaluate how done it is via old folk stregonona-y methods that I'm going to look up on the internet later. You can find this original Marcella recipe all over the place on the internet. It's printed pretty much word for word on the New York Times, but they also reprint the first step that I think is a little bit antiquated, where basically she wants you to like rinse the chicken inside and out and then pat it dry, which the patting it dry part, cool, but it seems like the modern consensus is basically like you don't need to wash chicken inside and out before you cook it, and the downside of potentially splashing your chicken with like, or rather potentially splashing your chicken, what am I trying to say? Potentially splashing your kitchen with raw chicken juice by, I suppose, splashing your chicken in the sink with water is way more dangerous and potentially causes food poisoning, more so than anything that could potentially be on the chicken that you would be trying to rinse off. You ultimately are going to decide what you're going to do or not do with your chicken. But this is what I'm going to do. I'm just going to pat it dry with like half of a paper towel, because paper towels are one of our more precious commodities around here. And then I am going to season it inside and out with a lot of salt and some pepper. And then I'm going to put it in the fridge, uncovered on a rack inside the roasting pan that I'm ultimately going to roast it in, so that it gets as dried as possible, just sitting uncovered in the fridge. And hopefully the skin dries out as much as possible, and then it will hopefully get a little bit crispier. That's just what I do when I roast a chicken, no matter what recipe or approach I'm using. So let's do that right now. Patting it dry just of the juices that were on it initially. And this will be using a skill that I feel like I mostly used from handling chickens, but it's definitely come in handy in the quarantine, where you're just going to want to keep an eye on like, what hand am I using to handle raw chicken and what hand am I using to salt the chicken with? Am I dipping in my little salt pig or thing full of salt? And I don't want to let them be the same hand. I'm going to use quite a bit of salt on the outside. And I think I'm going to stick pretty close to the rest of the recipe and roast it inside the pan without the drying rack, and that might undo some of the dried out effect that I'm trying to achieve by putting it in the fridge in a rack or on a rack, but that's okay. Worth a try. And I have already checked the cavity for giblets, whatever. The little bag that sometimes comes inside your whole poultry that has like the liver and heart and different stuff inside of it. Sometimes even the neck will be in there. You can keep all that stuff and use it for various applications if you do have it. This one did not have it, and I was a little disappointed, to be honest with you. And then, using my chicken touching hand, I'm going to turn the chicken and season inside the cavity. And now I'm just going to put the seasoned chicken into the fridge uncovered and let it get all dry and let the salt kind of sink in and change the interior structure of the chicken in ways that I don't fully understand, but I know are great. All right, the chicken has been hanging out in the fridge for a couple hours. Just pulled it out of the fridge, and then we're going to stuff it with a couple of lemons. First things first, going to preheat my oven to 350. She'd like us to roast the chicken in the top third of the oven, so you might want to reposition your oven racks if you need to, while still leaving enough room for the chicken and the pan. It says 2 small lemons. I'm going to look at how big my lemons actually are, because that is going to change things depending on how big they are. So yeah, I have one smallish lemon that's really on its last legs, so I'm happy that it's going to be used in this recipe. And then I have another one that's a little bit bigger, so I'm going to go ahead and use 2 lemons. In the past, when I've had really, really big lemons, I've just used 1. So we're gonna rinse them and pat them dry. Then we are going to soften the lemons by putting them on a counter and rolling it back and forth with like a decent amount of pressure. Loosen them up in there. Oh yeah, this one is, it's not bad, but it's definitely not like, it's a lemon that should be really glad that it's getting used today because it's right on the edge. Roll this other one on the counter, applying a decent amount of pressure. And then we are going to pierce them all over with, as she describes it, a sturdy round toothpick, a trussing needle, a sharp-pointed fork, or similar implement. In my case, I am going to use the pointy needle part of my broken meat thermometer. 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Lemon number 2. Ooh, yeah, they smell really nice and lemony. Tracks. All right, so next we are going to put the lemons in the cavity of the bird now that we've punctured them all over. So first I have a smaller lemon and then work in the bigger one. There we go. You get the sense that lemons were smaller in Marcella's heyday. Okay, so now we have our lemons in the cavity of the bird and we are going to endeavor to close up the opening. She recommends doing it with toothpicks or a trussing needle and string. I have toothpicks. If you don't have toothpicks or a trussing needle and string, definitely don't have a trussing needle because I'm not a old silent movie cowboy villain, so I don't ever really have to truss anything up. I would venture to say that if you had to leave the cavity open, I think it would still be good. I have toothpicks. That said, they're flat toothpicks, so we'll see how this goes. Takes a little bit of doing, but not bad. I'm gonna do like 3 or 4. Okay, that one broke. I'm gonna do like 3. Okay, that one broke again. Okay, so she says close it well, but don't make an absolutely airtight job of it because the chicken may burst. That was never going to be a problem for me because I had these little round toothpicks and I was able to get 3 of them through and that's about it. And that's going to be as closed as we are going to close it. Next up, she says run kitchen string from one leg to the other, tying it at both knuckle ends. Leave the legs in their natural position without pulling them tight. The chicken will puff up as it cooks and the string serves only to keep the thighs from spreading apart and splitting the skin. Again, if you don't have kitchen twine or anything like that, I would venture to say this would be an okay step to skip. I'm just going to do it because I'm a completionist. All right, tying one leg above the little knob of bone on the leg, doing a double knot, then doing the same thing on the other side, and then I'll take kitchen scissors and snip any like excess string. Makes me feel like a Boy Scout. So then, and this runs a little counter to other roast chicken recipes you may encounter, we're gonna start it cooking breast side down. I'm gonna take it off the rack that I had it on, and then I'm gonna flip it, put the breast side down in the pan. An easy way to tell if it's the breast side down is the wing tips and the little knobby bones at the ends of the legs will be facing down. Gonna slide the chicken into the oven. And then the next thing we're gonna do to it will be in 30 minutes. Overall, you're gonna wanna give yourself plenty of time. She's saying calculate between 20 and 25 minutes total cooking time for each pound. I have a little less than 5 pounds, and I'm no math whiz, but I think that's gonna time out to somewhere between 90 minutes and 2 hours. Half an hour has elapsed. I'm going to take the chicken out and flip it over so that the breast side is up. It already smells so good in here. I may have used too large of a pan. I'm using like a lasagna style pan. I think maybe literally the one that the Marcella Hazan book came with, so there's some symmetry there, but I'm getting not a ton of juices. The juices that are there are kind of running to the edge of the pan and drying out, so I might switch to a smaller pan before I flip it. There's no reason I need to stick with this pan. I did a bunch of dishes today. I have all the pans. I want there to be some nice juices in the pan when all is said and done, so I think I'm gonna switch to a smaller, more of a like a like a smaller like casserole dish that's just larger than the chicken. Just try it out. Why not, right? The sides are so high though. I feel like you're not going to get the level of browning. These are the questions, as my therapist once said, when I felt like he was didn't have anything else to say. The chicken is in there. It like just barely fits. It's kind of cute actually, but we're going to do it. Do you notice that during the quarantine? Do you notice that like there are certain things that you're like, I'm going to do this and it's going to be great. And you realize that you're functioning at like maximum 60% capacity? I got that right now. So setting my timer for another 30 minutes now that my chicken is in breast side up. And that's how it's going to be for the rest of the time. All right, there went my timer for my next half-hour interval. And so now we are going to turn the oven up to 400. And we're going to let it go for about another 20 minutes, depending. At that time, I would normally get it out and check with the meat thermometer basically how it's doing. This time I will probably be checking, like cutting between the breast and thigh and seeing if the juices run clear. Hopefully they will, because my trusty meat thermometer is broken. And now that I say that, it's not so trusty. This is like the third one of these I've bought. And yes, I'm talking to you, Thermo Pro. I'll take on any probably pretty small meat thermometer company out there. Head to head, let's go. I'm the Aaron Brockovich of this. And in the meantime, I am going to make what I want to go with my chicken. You can make any old thing you want to go with your chicken. In my case, I'm going to make a little polenta and I'm going to saute a little kale with some garlic. Not gonna go all into that because we got a lot of stuff to do on the show today, but if you want to hear me make polenta, I believe I made it like 2 episodes ago when we were having our pork al arrabbiata, so you can check that out. I made it based off of a New York Times commenter who was also like an anonymous cornstarch industry operative. So even though he might have been on the take from Big Corn, the method worked pretty well and it was fast, which is what I need right now because we have about another 20 minutes to 30 minutes to get to the table. And then I'm just gonna saute some kale, just basically put some olive oil in a pan, little chopped garlic, move that around for about 30 seconds till it gets fragrant, and then put in the kale, and then at a certain point for a little acidity, I'll probably throw in a little white wine vinegar or a little balsamic or red wine vinegar, basically whatever vinegar I lay my hand to first. All right, that is my timer on my 20 minutes at 400. So I'm gonna take a look at the chicken, see where it's at. Skin isn't super brown, but it's getting a lot of juices in the pan finally, which is nice. So I'm gonna take it out and test for doneness. Well, it's not golden brown, but it doesn't look half bad either. I'm gonna cut in between the leg and the thigh to see if the juices run clear or if they're still looking pinkish. Maybe a little pink as I go down. So just out of an abundance of caution, because I don't want to have to put it back in, I'm gonna leave it in for just like another 5 minutes. It might end up getting, I don't know. I don't know. I don't want it to get overcooked. This is the dance, and this is why I wish I had a meat thermometer working right now. Basically, I'm worried about having to put it back in, and I think if I have to put it back in after it's already gone to the table or started to be carved, I'll be more annoyed than if it's a little over. So with that in mind, I'm gonna put it back in for just a few more minutes. All right, so my last little timer just went off. I'm gonna turn the oven off, take the chicken out, and then carve a leg off and see how it's looking. And the skin looks decently brown, which is cool. Yeah, okay, I took one leg off. It's looking cooked all the way through. So we're gonna get ready to serve. As Marcella says, basically, if you bring it over to the table and carve it at the table, it makes a, what are her exact words? Hold on, let me look. Whether your bird has puffed up or not, bring it to the table whole and leave the lemons inside until it is carved and opened. The juices that run out are perfectly delicious. Be sure to spoon them over the chicken slices. The lemons will have shriveled up, but they still contain some juice. Do not squeeze them, they may squirt. All right, we'll bear that in mind, but in my case, I am actually going to carve the legs off, and that's what we're gonna eat right now. Serve it, like I said, with a little polenta and a little sauteed kale. Your choice of starch or veg or whatever may vary or not exist. Whatever you got, we're just stoked to have chicken. So that's what I'm the most excited about right now. All right, here we go. Haley Hepworth, we come to the table tonight, not just as guest and podcast hosts, not just as people who are married to each other, but as competitors.
Bitter adversaries.
But before we can get into that, I have made roast chicken, Marcella Hazan's roast chicken with lemon, and some polenta and some sauteed kale. So we'll eat it, we'll talk about it, and then we will enter onto the field of battle. And only one of us will emerge with the title?
Feels underbaked. I don't know.
We have just finished our chicken. First off, any reactions to the meal itself?
Yeah, it was great. I mean, you are really good at roasting chicken. You're very good.
Thank you.
I feel like definitely you have made the best roast chickens that I have had in my life, because you really do. They're well seasoned. They're well cooked, so they're juicy and flavorful and all that good stuff.
Thank you.
I feel like I overheard some concern that this may be over because you couldn't tell the exact temperature, and obviously want to err on the side of it being maybe a little over rather than being under and not safe to eat.
This was a concern, yes.
But I did not think it was at all. It was super juicy, super great. Yeah, I thought it was cooked beautifully.
Thank you. Thank you. I was happy with how it turned out as well. I did feel like it was maybe ever so slightly. We were also eating the legs, which cook at a different rate than the breasts. But I was a little bit it's a little bit past where I would like it to be, but by no means overcooked.
So the real test will be tomorrow when we eat the breast.
Yes.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
But I figured if that's going to be overcooked, we're having that left over anyway. We might have it cold. We might have it whatever. So
we could throw it on a sandwich with some
exactly.
If we that makes sense.
You can make chicken salad.
We need condiments on there
to
give it a little moisture.
Was my thinking.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I was happy with how it turned out.
Yeah, I really liked it.
One thing I realized, the step of putting the jus, basically the pan drippings on top like a sauce, that I almost wished I had done even more of. You felt like you got enough. I could have used more, but I'm also a jus freak.
I really like the jus. I just feel
I think I might have overdone it on your plate also. There might have been an unequal distribution of jus. What were you saying?
I could buy that. My experience of it was when I have something like this, I feel like recently something on the bone, and I know this is not a popular opinion maybe, but I don't like eating stuff off the bone. I find it stressful.
True, isn't it? I've been noticing that, but we haven't spoken it out loud. So much goes unspoken.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't like wrestling with it, or it just feels like a different... I don't know. I feel like I'm straddling between working and eating. You know what I mean?
I do, yes.
And I like, as we've discussed in the past, to just have a big bowl where everything's mixed in and kind of distributed, so you're getting the even distribution and a nice little situation. So that's what I ultimately ended up doing, and this meat was fortunately really tender and great and easy to take off the bone, so it wasn't a whole production. But then kind of mixed it in with the polenta and the kale and the jus. So in this situation, the jus really kind of mixed with the polenta and loosened the polenta up in a way that I liked, that almost gave me maybe it was the chicken of it all, I don't know, but almost gave me a congee reminiscent.
I was feeling the same thing.
Yeah,
totally. Where congee being the Chinese savory porridge that you often, or most of the times that we've made it, we haven't made it in a really long time, but it was we had a little congee phase, and it was really good. But the thing where you put chicken in with rice and it all cooks at the same time, in stock, I was getting that as well with the polenta and the chicken juices and the chicken itself.
Yeah.
I think I might have even gone overboard, and I was feeling like I didn't have enough jus. I went back for more, and then I ended up putting on too much to where it overwhelmed the polenta. The polenta lost all integrity and didn't do the thing it was supposed to do, which is soak up the juices. I overplayed my hand. I was like a jus Icarus.
And I hate to do this, DC, but I have to note for listeners at home.
It's true. This is journalism.
That DC tried to foist more jus on me, and I did not want it. And I was saying no, and I got a little attitude back of like, oh, you're rejecting the jus, or you don't like the jus. I had plenty of jus. I knew the balance was correct on my plate, and I had to defend that.
You had it where you like it. But this is interesting, though, because you do, now that we're talking about it, I'm realizing that oftentimes when we have something like this, you will kind of do like an extra moment after the plate comes. You know what I mean? Where it's sort of like you're getting everything off the bone or you're kind of mixing things together. And ultimately, I end up, I would say 7 times out of 10, I look at that and I go, oh, that's a good idea. And then I do the same thing.
I feel like it's probably bad manners. I wouldn't do that at a restaurant or at somebody else's house. But when I'm just trying to zone out and that really is what it is. No, totally. I just, oh boy, this is pathetic. But I just don't want to have to think about it.
Sure, right.
So I just want to prep my little plate and then I get to just enjoy it and sail away.
Because as we discussed on your first appearance on the show, you like a big bowl of stuff. So this is getting it closer to big bowl, or in this case, big plate of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, this is very big bowl of stuff, ultimately. Which it didn't start out that way, but sometimes I have to take it there.
That's right.
In the privacy of my own home.
And what is a home if not a place where you can zone out with a big bowl of stuff? I didn't have anything there.
The wind up, though, my God.
Thank you. The king of the wind-up. That would be a great comic.
That's such a, yeah.
Setup kings.
Oh, man.
Original kings of setup comedy. But speaking of setup, enough setup. Let's do more setup for this episode that we are calling, I've just been calling it the ingredient draft. I think that's what we're going to call the whole thing.
Great.
Cool. So for the ingredient draft, quick shout out to, this is inspired in part by, we are currently in a Top Chef fantasy league that we are loving and is 80% of our lives right now. And we did a draft at the beginning of that because it's fantasy sports. And then also the podcast, All Fantasy Everything, Ian Carmel and the gang over there drafting stuff that is not sports stuff. But this, I was realizing as we were putting it together, is not a fantasy draft. We have a list, 23 actual food items in our house. We are each going to pick a team of 6 food items in draft fashion. Today actually is the day of the NFL draft. Neither of us are huge sports fans, but my stepmom is a big football fan. She's very excited about it. This is our that. Right?
Yeah.
Cooking is to our house what the NFL is to America. We do it. We like it. But we're also a little bit troubled by it because we're like, oh my God, the brain damage.
Yeah. I bonk you on the head with a big old pan a lot. But that's part of the art form, DC.
Exactly. And that's just, you have to know when you get into the kitchen that's what's going to happen. We're warriors. It's a really sad, real thing that is happening to those guys. It's very messed up.
The ingredient
draft. I'm a little bit slap happy. It's kind of late. I had a cup of coffee at 6.
It's also just so hot in here.
Yeah, it's very hot.
I don't know if this is like we're trying to maintain some sort of mystique that everything's
it's very
great.
Hot.
It's our house is so
it hit 90
hot.
Today in
We've
April.
had the oven on all day long. All day.
Yes, you were making...
I made a carrot cake.
Which looks amazing, by the way.
Which necessitated the oven being on for a while because I had to bake it in batches because we only have one 9-inch pan. And then we made a really good lunch staple that we've been enjoying during the quarantine, which is just like a simple sweet potato, but it does necessitate the oven to be on 500 for like an hour and a half.
Really long time.
Like you got to really whack those sweet potatoes until they just get completely mushy, and it's worth it.
It's so good.
And it's so satisfying, but you can't like half bake them. They have to just be completely falling apart, caramelized mush. And oh my God. And then you did the roast chicken.
And then I did the roast chicken. So the oven has literally been on for 8 hours.
Oh, yeah. That is, I guess, maybe why everybody's also feeling loopy.
Also, I think I've been looking forward to this so much that now that it's finally here, I'm a little bit like giddy and I don't want it to. I'm just like so excited.
Oh, you're having like a kid pattern.
A little bit,
like,
yeah.
Sure,
I just got to eat chicken that I really like. It's fun. I don't know. I'm enjoying it. Let's go through the ingredients, shall we?
Great.
I'll just list them out. So we have them broken up into different categories. That's not going to affect how we actually draft them. It's just a way that we broke them up when we were talking about what all we wanted to put on the table, so to speak. We have hot Italian sausage that is fresh. It is not frozen. And that's important because another possible protein that we have is flank steak. We have about 10 to 12 ounces of flank steak, but that is in the freezer. We didn't used to freeze a lot of things, but now we're freezing everything because it makes it last longer. And that's why. And we also have 16 ounces of ground beef as our other available like meat protein. In our aromatics category, we have some ginger, some stem ginger, as they say on Great British Baking Show. It's fresh, right? That's what they mean by stem ginger.
Yeah, it's not like powdered or dried.
Right.
Yeah.
We have garlic, and then we have a little bit of an interesting one. We have some green garlic, which basically just means young garlic shoots that have like some green stuff on them. They're not the same really as garlic. They don't have quite the
mild.
same. They're much milder. Yeah, exactly. Then in our allium, I don't know how to pronounce this word, but I use it a lot.
I would say allium.
You don't think it's allium? Or is that just a fun way for a kid to mispronounce alien?
I think it's that.
Okay, fair enough. We have scallions, and then we have yellow onion. Then in our veg category, not a ton of options here. Broccolini and some collard greens, both of which are in the crisper and looking very nice. Fruit, we have lemon, orange, grapefruit. We have a single grapefruit. We have a couple of apples. Fresh herbs wise, we have some nice looking parsley hanging out in the crisper. And then we have some mint that is actually literally still growing as we speak. It is the last herb standing in my herb garden attempt that I started a while ago. Originally, it was thyme, oregano, mint. I think there was even rosemary. It was like a...
What happened?
I know.
Those ones are supposed to be like the hardy ones.
The hardy ones, right? And yet the mint is the last one standing. I think it's because the mint I put in its own little thing, and then the rest of them got flooded.
Each other.
Yeah, the other ones, I don't know if they were fighting initially. I don't know what happened with the thyme and the rosemary.
Just whatever happened in that pot.
We were out of town.
Ideal.
I don't know. Something happened, and then, or I just forgot about them for a while, and then I don't know. After that, it's just the thyme went. The rosemary was next. The oregano was really hanging on. The oregano was very hardy, which also is like, I feel like they've been dying in order of usefulness. Do you know what I mean? Like thyme and rosemary, I could use all the time. Like I would have used thyme like tonight if I had it. Mint, I will say, is more useful than oregano. Fresh oregano, you don't come up with that many uses for. It's very Italian tasting. I feel. Hit me up in the comments.
Yeah, I'd love to know if there are non-Italian oregano uses that people are liking.
I will say, I remember one of the first sort of really braised like taco meat slow cooker dishes I remember making called for dried Mexican oregano, which makes me think that maybe oregano might be in more Mexican stuff than we think of.
Oh,
but I'm not sure.
Buy that. I
don't really know. I just associate it so strongly with Italian food, maybe because I grew up in a town that had an Italian place called Oregano's.
Which... when I think of Italian herb, I think of basil.
Me too.
So oregano. Poor oregano.
I think you think of oregano. I think basil's doing all the actual heavy lifting that we think oregano is doing.
I know.
But oregano has that so specific
pizza
saucy flavor to it.
And I think oregano also is antibacterial.
Is it? Really?
Yeah. We had a yellow lab named Hank. And he would go swimming in a pond, and then he would get really bad ear infections because the pond water would get in there and, do its thing.
Adorable.
But I feel like I have a memory of my mom rubbing his ears out with oregano oil to try to, kill his ear infections in a way that was safe and, relaxing for him. That was, probably he's more into than having to try to trick him into taking a pill or something.
Sure. That is so sweet.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's what it was.
So it's Italian and it's Hank's clean ears. Clean, sweet.
It's for cleaning out your dog's filthy swamp ears.
So where were we? Parsley and mint are our fresh herbs. Starches, we have sweet potato, so like the ones that we cooked today, jasmine rice, white jasmine rice, spaghetti, and then egg noodles. So it's a decent amount of starch options, maybe because they last a long time. Then in a miscellaneous category, we have eggs, canned chickpeas, like 1 can of chickpeas, or 1 can of coconut milk. Those are our sort of weirdly fall between like non-meat protein, just different, just like wild cards.
Looking at this list, I'm feeling a little bit self-conscious that we have so few vegetables in the house, but I do think it's just like they go fast, so we try to use them as soon as we get them.
Yeah, we like eat them every night.
And we used some today.
Yes.
So we're healthy.
Kale.
I used carrots into making a cake. So
come on, guys.
Come on, get off my ass about this.
Well, yeah, we have tomatoes. I just didn't put that
in there.
I think,
we're
'cause we're like,
saving them.
we
Yeah.
want to use those
No,
for
I know.
probably having pasta on the weekend.
Yeah, I know.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We could have put that in there.
Yeah, well, I guess
we have
it's technically a
avocados, but we
fruit.
have avocado
Yeah.
toast for lunch. Which is that a fruit or a vegetable?
I think
is that
also
one of those
a fruit.
weirdos? Oh,
I
interesting.
think tomato and avocado are both fruits.
Okay, we have fruits on here too.
No, I know.
I feel defensive about it too now.
I don't
Should we drop in a couple? Let's just say a couple that we have, but we won't pick. They're just astroturfing to make people think that we sound healthier.
Great.
Golden beets.
Oh God, I can't even think of a vegetable.
You just had such a panicked expression on your face. Asparagus. There's like springy ones.
Oh,
Snap
right.
peas. Ones that we would be eating
Yeah,
right now if we were going to the
know.
store more.
I know.
We're going to the farmer's market. Guys, we eat vegetables. We've created a fictional person who's mad at us or like judging us. Not even mad at us, just judging us silently, being like, those gross creeps. They probably have scurvy. No, that's the one you get from not eating fruit. We said we had fruit. And
Yeah, we
do.
had all sorts of citrus.
We've been eating it.
Put some of it in that cake.
Anything that you eat in cake form is doubly healthy because you're getting the nutrients and then you're also being happy.
Yeah, it makes you happy.
And that's mental health. We're very slap happy. It is the heat, isn't it? A little bit.
Oh my God. Yeah, I'm feeling sweat trickling down my neck. This is...
Okay, do you want to open the door or a window or something?
Yes.
Because we have okay, great. Let's do it. All right, now we've opened a door and a window and things are a little less Tennessee Williams play in here. Although I should say that Haley's wearing a tight white t-shirt. A la freaking, what's his name? Brando in Streetcar Named Desire.
Oh, yeah. Watch it.
He was cool to his spouse, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So basically, we're going to draft these ingredients, we're going to cook with them, and then we're going to eat the meals that we make. How do we figure out who wins? This is the thing that we haven't yet figured out.
You also just real quickly started to say how long? Is there a time limit on
I was
this?
wondering. I don't know. We should discuss that.
Oh. All right. I don't know. You want to say like 3 hours?
Yeah, that sounds more than reasonable. I don't think it should be like a time thing. I just feel like there should maybe be like an outer limit, but I can't think of anything we would make with any of these ingredients that would need longer than that.
No, me neither.
Let's just not do a time limit.
Other than if it's like, oh, you would need to prep something in advance because you're doing some treatment to it that would take overnight or
Like a
hours or
pickle
something.
or something?
Yeah, but like
Let's
you
keep it
could do
within-
a quick
let's keep it
pickle
within a
faster
day.
than that.
Let's keep
yeah.
it. Let's say
I would
3
say
hours at
let's
the
do
outermost.
3 hours.
Okay, great.
Yeah, 3 hours.
And then
and you can't prep anything before then. You can plan.
Yes.
But you can't prep anything before then.
Okay.
DC.
That sounds fair.
I'll be watching you because I'm always in this apartment.
And I, you, and the cats, both of us. And
Because they
us,
want
them.
the food, yeah.
Cool. Sounds good. But then how do we figure out who wins?
That is the question. Because I don't think we can trust either of us to
Right.
be unbiased.
If we make it something that people can externally vote on, it's just going to be the picture.
Yeah. Or, a popularity contest, DC, and I just don't know if that would be fair to
the
you
home
given
team.
my robust social media presence.
You're primarily a live performer. You love live performance. True or false?
Yeah.
And the social media thing's a little more complicated. We'll say that.
Yeah. I don't like it.
So how about this? And we'll leave this open to where if audience members strongly disagree, I'm open to hearing about other alternative ways of scoring this. But I think here's what we do. We do the draft. We cook. We make them. We eat them. And then we hash it out. And we just don't leave the table until
we've come out with a winner.
We've come out with a winner.
Okay.
Meaning like we just have to, one person has to basically agree that the other person's was the best. How do you feel about that?
I feel fine about that.
I meant to mention at some point on the show, you're very competitive, I should say.
Yeah. I think we're both competitive.
We're both very competitive. I think you're more competitive than I am.
Yeah, I think so too.
Like, I like competing and I like winning.
And I love competing and I have to win.
So with that said, but I think you would admit if you felt like mine was better.
Yes, no. Oh my God.
And I think that'll just make for an interesting for us figuring out like why
if anything,
are they better? What is better about
DC,
which?
Really, if I've learned anything from my very, very competitive mom, it's that you're always really competing against yourself.
Exactly.
So I can admit fully if I'm falling short of my own expectations for myself.
Great.
Let's hope it doesn't come to that.
So how do we figure out who wins? We just get on the mics and hash it out until one person admits defeat.
Yeah.
I like it.
Which I think we're both capable of doing
so
that.
too.
And I think we're both honest.
I think so too.
That's one thing I will say about our cooking life is I think we're both very honest about when we feel like we have met our expectations or our goals with what we're cooking and when we feel like we've maybe botched something or are learning that it may need to be executed differently. You know, I don't think either one of us is down on ourselves regularly or being like, oh gosh, this dumb meat, I don't, or whatever. Like, nobody's...
And is it clear that when we're saying that, we're looking at our own hands?
Yeah, they're covered in blood. No, I think we're both good at being honest with ourselves about, appraising whether an attempt has been successful or not. And then looking at it and assessing like, okay, even if we feel like this was successful, is there something I'd want to tweak next time?
Right.
Is there something I want to try moving forward with this recipe, whether or not I feel like it was a success or
correct
could have been more of a success?
Yes.
Which, I think that's a way to live life.
Notes for next time. Just saying like, next time I would do this, I would do this. It doesn't have to be going like, I'm bad or this is bad or I'm an idiot.
No.
It can just be like,
it's very often like, oh, I love this. I think this is great. I'm happy with this, but maybe next time I would try blank to get this different texture, or maybe I would try a little more of this because that could be a compliment that might heighten it or something.
I've definitely felt that sometimes when cooking. It used to be earlier, I think, but I would get that feeling of like feeling flustered and just being like, I don't know, whatever, it's stupid. And I feel like I don't have that as much anymore. And I like to think part of that is gaining proficiency, but I think more importantly, it's just like gaining a perspective on it and knowing like, well, this is something I like to do in general. I will do this again. I might not make this exact thing again, but if I did, here's what I would do differently, or here's the sort of global lesson I want to take away from this, or I go, it just didn't work out, but it's still dinner.
Yeah. It also is
so
like...
rarely do things become truly inedible.
Yes, for sure. Also knowing, I think it's when you first start cooking and you're like, this is one of the only 2 things I've ever made.
Yes, smaller sample size.
Then it's like,
exactly.
It feels so easy to feel defeated or to feel like I'm bad at this and it's like, I don't know. If once you just do it so many times and you're like, I don't know, maybe this didn't pan out, but I'll be cooking something else in 2 days. So whatever.
I don't like baseball necessarily, but I like baseball metaphors. And it's just a thing of like, you just need to see more pitches. You know what I mean? Like you just need to continue having at bats and taking swings.
Totally.
You know what I mean? Now we flip to see, here's my thinking on this. We flip to see not literally who will go first, but the person that gets to elect, will you pick first or second?
Oh, okay.
If that's cool.
Yeah.
Oh, and then the other thing I was thinking of is whoever doesn't pick who goes first or second should get to pick who cooks first or second.
Oh, okay.
So one person will cook on day 1, one person will cook on day 2. Do you have a coin?
No. I think I saw one on
the floor. Me too. Guys, that's how it's going in quarantine. We're both just walking past a quarter on the floor going, when would we have an opportunity to ever use this again?
Where is that?
I know. I've been walking past it all day. Haha, we found it.
Among the cat hairs.
All right. We have retrieved our ceremonial quarter from the floor. And would you like to flip or would you like to...
I'll flip, you call, because I'm holding it.
Okay, great.
You ready?
Yep. Heads. Always choose heads.
It is heads.
Okay. I will select... Ooh, I got to select first. I got to take first mover advantage, especially since we're not doing a snake draft.
That's perfect.
I just
I
wanted
would
to
have
say
chosen
snake draft.
second.
You would have chosen second?
Yeah.
Interesting. Very interesting. That really throws me off. And maybe that was the point. So once again, real quick check of our ingredients. Hot Italian sausage, flank steak, ground beef, ginger, garlic, green garlic, scallions, yellow onion, broccolini, collard greens, lemon, orange, grapefruit, apples, parsley, mint, sweet potato, jasmine rice, spaghetti, egg noodles, eggs, a can of chickpeas, and a can of coconut milk. We're each selecting 6. Also, we should say we are also working with a pantry full of ingredients as well. Like we're letting ourselves have cooking media, like oils and butter and
spices
etc., sauces,
salt, pepper. Yeah.
Exactly. And everything beyond that is sort of subject to outside approval. But we should say everything that we don't pick is off limits.
Yes, that's like included in the
draft. Everything that is draftable but is not drafted.
Off the table.
Off the table.
I mean, if you want to use up 2 of your 6 picks on both scallions and yellow onions, be my guest, DC. I am going to risk...
When I make my onion fantasy?
Yeah. Especially, it's like you just made an onion-forward dish for this podcast last week.
Onions. Right.
My math is telling me...
That's the bet you're making.
Yeah, that's the bet, and I'm comfortable with that. I feel confident, and if you're going to do it, fine. I can do plenty of things without yellow onions.
You just said fime.
Fine.
Like F-I-M-E.
Fime. You know what? Fime. What was your allium?
Allium, that's right.
Allium?
You're an allium?
Fime. You can say I don't have a plan.
Oh, even more interesting.
Or do I?
Or does she? I know. That's the problem. People can just say anything.
What does it make you think is happening?
It makes me think you're trying to prevent me from making fried rice.
Oh, well, that didn't occur to me, but sure.
But good job.
Yeah.
In the second round. Ooh, what do I want to do here? That's so interesting. Eggs. What is she thinking?
Nothing.
In the second round, Team DC will select ginger.
Okay. This makes me think you're maybe going Asian, scallions and ginger. And that a little bit does make me say, isn't this interesting? I am going to go ahead and in the second round, I'm going to take garlic.
Surprised garlic stayed on the board as long as it did, quite frankly. So our king aromatics, ginger and garlic, are off the table. Green garlic still available. Very interesting. All the proteins still on the board. In the third round, Team DC selects. Ooh. Because at this moment, I still feel like I have options. Like I'm not feeling boxed in, which is good. But that's also making it a little bit more difficult to choose. So in the third round, I will select broccolini.
You do love broccolini.
I really do like broccolini.
I feel like I grew up eating broccoli. Not fussy, not fancy.
Like the lamest.
It's a blue collar.
I was just going to say blue collar comedy. I grew up eating broccoli.
Broccolini. But no, you've opened my life up to a lot more broccolini, and it's great.
Babe, don't just say our wedding vows on the
show. Okay, third round. How
are you feeling at this moment?
I'm feeling pretty good. Similarly, I don't feel very boxed in yet. But I'm kind of looking at the options. A lot of great ingredients still on the board. A lot of good options.
I should say a mischievous smile just crossed Haley's face.
I'm going to go ahead and nab parsley.
Parsley? This is really keeping me on my toes. I would say every one of your picks has been truly unexpected to me.
That's the game, DC.
That is the game. The game within the game. So far, to recap, halfway through, Team DC, scallions, ginger, broccolini. Team Haley, eggs, garlic, and parsley.
I don't know.
Very interesting. I feel like on both, neither one of it's feeling like I expected there to be things that got off the board so early that were so determinant that it would feel like everything else were just like fleshing.
Yeah, we're
fleshing
out
out
our
but
dish.
In both cases,
No.
I feel like we're still nibbling around the margins, the little green things, etc.
Yes.
In the fourth round, the halfway mark, Team DC selects the flank steak.
Oh, interesting. Very interesting. If Top Chef has taught me anything, it's a frozen protein is risky, DC.
It's true, but there's only one non-frozen option.
That's true. And with that in mind, I will pick up the hot Italian sausage.
That's going to be good. It is, in a vacuum, I think, the ingredient I was the most excited about.
Fresh. Not frozen.
Simple. Fresh.
So that was the ingredient you were most excited about, but you didn't take it.
Correct.
In 4 rounds. And you took a different...
Just in a vacuum.
As a
consumer
protein.
In the home.
Sure.
It's the thing that is in the fridge that I'm the most like,
which is funny because I feel like I'm not... Like, I like sausage fine.
I love
but I never
Italian
really
sausage.
think of it or go for it or cook with it that much.
I have really liked... I've long liked sausage in a kind of passive way, and I became aware like a few years ago, like, oh, chefs really like sausage because as opposed to whole meat, the fat is blended through it and you can introduce other flavors into it with like spices and different things. So it's almost in a weird way like a more perfect meat in many ways,
Sure.
even though it seems very
makes sense.
humble. And
So I like that about it. And then in the quarantine, I feel like it was just like on the day before the world sort of really fully tipped, it felt like I was having my like, I'm one of the only people here that's fully panic shopping, but there's definitely a lot of other people here that are panic shopping. And
meanwhile, I was on the other end of the phone being like, it's fine.
In an audition room with 50 people. And sorry,
I was wrong.
But I grabbed all that to say I grabbed like a bunch of them and threw them in the freezer. Not literally hot Italian sausage, but like I think like bratwurst was on sale.
No, it was a staple of our first week of quarantine, and I through that experience have gained a new appreciation for it.
You were doing a nice like sausage and cabbage thing, like a
nice, I used
like,
those bratwurst with kind of like caramelized a little. It was very it was good.
Really good.
It was good. And my brother Matt, he used to live in a house with a bunch of guys where each night of the week, every week, they would each trade off making a house meal, like dinner for everybody. And I know he had housemates, specifically his housemate Cody. Shout out Cody.
Shout out to
Cody. What a great guy. Who
I think is like literally working on the vaccine or something. Isn't he working on some
he's in a
insane
lab
biotech thing?
God
bless him. I mean, all of Matt and his friends are all fucking geniuses. And also Cody is he's my Lyndon Johnson buddy. He's the only other person I know who's like read the Robert Caro Lyndon Johnson books.
And he's a great chef. Allegedly. Matt says we've never had anything that he's made, I guess, but he talks the talk. He knows what he's doing.
And apparently he's so meticulous that he like rigorously scours the bottom, like the underside of their pots. I feel like I remember hearing.
Oh, sure.
Which I really respect and don't do. But I did one time with some baking soda on this one pot and it got so clean. It's great. Try it. You got baking soda.
All that to say, Matt was saying like, oh, Cody would make us these like incredible, beautiful, elaborate meals every week. And I'm not really a chef or not really maybe having the time or interest at that moment in his life to undertake that sort of cooking endeavor. So he was known for weekly making some sort of variation on weens and greens, which would be some sort of greens and some sort of sausage. And it sounds great, and it's something I do think about a lot. And yeah, I think this hot Italian sausage has a lot of potential. I'm excited to play with it. We're pleased with our pick.
All right, going into the fifth round. So this is my second to last pick. Ooh. In the fifth round, Team DC selects jasmine rice.
Confirming my suspicion that he's going Asian, I feel. Not necessarily, but I feel like that's what it's looking like on the board. I'm going to go ahead and grab those collards.
Team Haley selects collard greens. Final pick for me. Sixth round. So we'll round out the roster. But again, it's never been about the star players at any point. It's always been about the back and forth. I look at hers, eggs, garlic, parsley, hot Italian sausage, collard greens. I don't know if it tells me necessarily a coherent story yet, but they all sound very good. So I'm trying to think, what doesn't she have? What can I bring to the table? What do I have? I will say at this moment, part of me wants to go for green garlic because you have garlic and I love garlic. And I think about, especially in Asian cooking, ginger and garlic going very well together. Based on what I've accumulated, you may have sensed a theme. I wouldn't say whether or not that's true, but you seem to have sensed one. And so part of me does want to go like, I want to get some kind of garlic in there, but then I also get nervous about like green garlic. Again, not very strong. Is it going to really be, can I get flavor in there in other ways and save one of my other picks? And I think I can. And that's why in the sixth and final round, Team DC has selected orange.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense to me. Very exciting.
Final pick? Final
Very
round?
exciting. Yeah, I really did want to get one of these fruits, but as I'm looking at it, I'm realizing I never did pick up that yellow onion, and I think I want it.
So you want to get out of here without a starch?
Yeah.
No. Okay. Yeah. Great. Interesting. Very interesting.
Again, I don't have a plan, but I feel comfortable with that.
All right. Final pick, yellow onion. The teams are set. Team Haley, eggs, garlic, parsley, hot Italian sausage, collard greens, yellow onion. Team DC, scallions, ginger, broccolini, flank steak, jasmine rice, and an orange. Wow. How are we feeling? Can we
We're
reactions?
feeling okay.
Snap reactions.
Snap reactions. I feel like I made one mistake.
Interesting.
Or looking
which is
at my
what?
lineup, I look at something that I would have swapped.
Do you think you can speak to it without giving away your strategy?
I mean, yeah, because I don't have a strategy. But just looking at what I have, I think I was thinking, ooh, I got to grab these collard greens because I want like green. I want a vegetable to play with. I want green on the plate. I want, that sort of like bitter note, something fresh, And then I'm realizing, oh, I have parsley, which isn't the same, but it's, kind of maybe covering some redundant territory, and looking at feeling like I wish I had, instead of the collard greens, selected lemon, because I
You're
feel
an
like
acid queen, we should
I
say.
am an acid queen, and looking at lemon when I was considering it and kind of weighing it earlier, was thinking, okay, it's on my wish list of things that I want, but I maybe don't know if I need to prioritize it, because I can probably use a vinegar or something instead to get a similar sort of acid. And I love vinegar, but it doesn't have the same sort of like floral, bright, you know what I mean?
I do.
The same sort of quality that a lemon
totally.
brings, that's bringing a lot of its own flavor in a way that, I don't know.
Yeah, that's my main reaction looking at this, is I am shocked that lemon didn't go.
I know.
I
regret it immediately. I regretted it even before the last round.
Oh,
as soon as
interesting.
I picked collards, I was like, I should have gotten lemon instead, because I know I need to get that yellow onion. And I think I kind of, I
do, but also I think there's a lot of collard greens and sausage to me go together super well.
Yes,
You know what
I think
mean?
so
Like
too.
that, the fattiness from the sausage and the kind of
Yes.
like char, and then the idea of like collard greens, like they soak up so much flavor, and I feel like
Yes.
Italian sausage is bringing so much flavor.
I'm very excited to
party.
have them.
Yeah.
I'm very excited to have them, and I think we can have a lot of fun
Oh,
with
yeah.
them. And I think especially
yeah.
knowing that I can get some vinegar in the mix to bring that
Right.
acid, I think we're going to have a lot of fun out there.
It's a fun team. It's an exciting team.
It is an
you know what I
exciting
mean?
team.
I think it's a team that like,
I mean, God, it could go any direction. I still have no idea.
it's a team that a dad would look at the beginning of the year and knowing like maybe this is a rebuilding year, but he'd be like, I think we're going to be fun this season. He's not saying like we're going to be good.
Okay. Wow. Incredibly undermining.
That's what I thought you
DC.
were saying.
No. I'm saying this is a winning team that is stacked with all-stars, and anybody would be insane to look at this team and think, wow,
Hot Italian sausage, MJ, eggs, Scottie Pippen, Tony
Scottie
Kukoc.
Pippen is extremely eggs.
He's so solid,
and
he was so underpaid.
You don't realize they're in fucking everything.
know.
They do so
That's
much
true.
heavy lifting. They're
That's true.
great. But people don't, maybe they're not as flashy, or maybe just
Scottie
people,
Pippen is totally eggs.
they get overshadowed,
Ugh.
but they are foundational.
We should say neither of us is a huge basketball fan.
We're
but we have
basing
been
this
watching
analysis off of
the Michael Jordan documentary.
2 episodes of the Michael Jordan documentary that have been
two
released
episodes
so far.
of which will have just aired that we haven't seen yet. Will they win? I actually genuinely don't know if they. You know what? I don't know if they win that season that the show is about.
I don't
genuinely
either.
don't know. This is exciting. Please don't tell us. I am feeling good. I went into.
I look at your list; it feels very cohesive to me.
Yeah. And again, that to me almost, it makes me a little bit nervous. It's sort of like, okay, if I'm starting to feel too confident, I immediately get like a little bit like, what am I missing here? Or I don't want to feel overconfident, or I don't want to feel like
Is it too straight down the line?
Exactly. That's what I mean. Do I have enough room for creativity? Because I feel like yours is a fun team. It's got a lot of room for creativity and imagination, whereas my team, I'm like, that's pretty straightforward. I'm not imagining adding a whole lot to that or having to get super. I don't know. It's very interesting.
We will see.
Were there any other routes that you thought you could go that you didn't ultimately?
I really wasn't thinking about it all that much. I wanted to I didn't want to feel locked into a particular strategy or particular set of ingredients because I had no idea what you'd be doing. So I kind of just took it one at a time.
Which makes sense. I mean, each time somebody takes an ingredient off the board, it kind of changes the game. You know what I mean?
A little bit. And I think just coming in trusting that I know, I have a foundational knowledge of like what I reach for or what I like to cook with a lot.
Right.
What feels to me most useful that doesn't, in my sort of repertoire. And then just letting that guide the way.
I had like basically a couple of different like roads that I was like, I could go down that I had like theoretical ingredient lists for.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh my God.
And I got one entire one.
This to me makes perfect sense.
Why?
This is, I think, what is different about how we cook differently.
Right.
Like
I want to feel like I have like a foundation going in and going like, this is the universe of.
Well, I like a foundation, but I mean, I think you like more of a direct
That's true. We've talked about that.
You like a recipe.
Yeah. Right.
Whereas I feel like, I don't know, I like a little flexibility to be able to,
One thing I feel like that was just very soothing to me the entire time, even though I didn't ultimately pick it, was the presence of egg noodles.
Interesting.
I think the idea that there was egg noodles out there changed the whole way that I picked.
That's fascinating. Isn't that
I would have picked jasmine rice first or second if not for that.
Oh, very interesting.
Because it was so like, I was like, oh, egg noodles could swing. I was basically like, a lot of these ingredients feel very Italian to me. I think you ended up more in an Italian zone. I mean, not least of all because the Italian sausage, but also parsley. And even egg. I don't know.
I mean, who knows what we're going to do with that egg.
But
there's 2 eggs, excuse me.
But you see egg in like Italian soups and stuff, just like egg on its own. I feel like sometimes crops up.
Egg is everywhere.
Egg is everywhere. It's Scottie Pippen. But the one ingredient that I was like could really exist in either one of those worlds, in the Asian or Italian sort of roads I could see myself going down, I was like, egg noodles, either one would be totally fine.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense.
So it made me not be like, I have to get spaghetti or I have to get rice.
Yeah. That totally makes sense. And as we see, I wasn't terribly excited about any of the starches. I don't know.
I know.
I love starch. I was looking at them. I just
wasn't.
I don't know. None of them were really calling out to me necessarily. And I think, none of them were calling out to me. And I think maybe part of me felt like when I was thinking about eggs, there's part of me that knows that with eggs, there is always the potential to make a starch if I need one.
Meaning like a pasta?
Some sort of dough, whether it's pasta or otherwise. I feel like that's...
Now it's a question. Should that be allowed? Because that flour to me
Why
almost
would it
feels
not
like...
be allowed? Oh my God. So hold on.
Yes.
So you're suggesting that maybe flour shouldn't be allowed?
I'm not suggesting it. I'm just saying it's a question.
People are saying. Very, very interesting.
No. I think at this point, especially because you chose eggs and you didn't pick a starch, you have to be allowed to have flour.
Yeah, I'm wondering if soy sauce shouldn't be allowed as I'm looking at your list.
Hold on now. Hold the phone. Yeah, no, for sure. No, flour will be allowed. But then that makes me be like, oh, I don't know. It's interesting. It's very interesting.
What do you mean?
Because I just feel like if you home make pasta, that's the game. That's the ball game.
Not necessarily. I also don't even know if I will, and I'm not,
Right.
Who knows?
But
I'm just saying that knowing in the back of my head
sausage roll.
That, I could.
Ooh,
you just don't know,
shit.
DC.
I don't.
Just knowing that I had eggs, I think gave me the similar feeling of stability that
makes
the
sense.
knowledge of the egg noodles gave you, where I feel like if I have these, I could do whatever I need with them. I could, they could be their own freestanding component in something like poached or fried or otherwise, or I could just use the yolk in something, or I could, I could do any number of things with these eggs because they're so versatile.
Yeah, they're really good.
And
good.
they really lend themselves to any cuisine.
Yes.
And I, knowing like I could use them themselves, or I could use them to make a dough of some sort or make something out of them. That gave me the same feeling of comfort that I think when you look at my list and you're thinking, what's going on? Eggs? that's the feeling that it gave me. And that in itself was value for me mentally.
Yeah. So I think it's interesting. I feel like today there was a decent amount of time of me being on my laptop, making my little plan going into the draft. I suspect that between now and cooking, you might not literally be on your laptop, but there will be a decent amount of figuring. And that's the thing that I'm worried about.
Well, sorry, DC, it's
I think
your
you
life.
have more. No, I know. But I think that's the thing that's now your strategic advantage. I think my strategic advantage is there's a very clear story that my ingredients are telling. Whereas yours are a little more disparate, but I feel like that leaves more opportunity for surprise.
Yeah, a little more razzle dazzle. I don't know.
Whereas I'm a fundamentals team. We're just going to get out there and slug it out.
No, I think it's so funny to me that you planned, that you went down options of like, these are maybe things that like lists that I could make for dishes I could make. There's just no part of that feels tempting to me to do at all.
Interesting.
Because I just feel like, I don't know. I think I don't want to make plans for shit I don't have, you know?
Right.
And I know that part of that, I don't know. I think there's part of me that feels uncomfortable with the idea of like, well, okay, so then what if I make this plan and then one of the ingredients is off the board? I don't want to be in my head feeling like, oh no, now I'm not having my ideal scenario.
Well, I had alts.
Well, sure, of course. You always have alts, but you know, like
I do.
I would much rather be like, okay, now I know what I'm playing with. Now it's time to plan. Now it's time to start thinking.
See, because I feel like for me, I'm like, if there's a phase where I get to act, I want to have planned.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. That makes sense.
Because otherwise it should just be random.
Well, it's not random. I'm making these choices with, again, knowledge of
right. But you don't want to feel uptight
what it feels like to be
it.
Kind of freestyling something in the kitchen and feeling like, what am I reaching for? What do I wish we had?
Because also basically what you're going is like, here's the ingredients that I'm the most excited about, as opposed to like, I'm picking a couple things I'm excited about, and that's determining.
Yeah, here are just things that I know that I
roster.
use. I know that I use. I could see maybe going together as things are taking shape.
Right. You're picking 6 stars.
Kind of. I mean, not necessarily. Like
stars to you.
Stars to me, sure. I like all of these ingredients.
And I also like all my ingredients.
So,
yeah.
There we go.
Right.
That's why nobody ended up with,
What? What's the dud in here? What's the one that nobody was ever going to pick? Grapefruit?
I love
really
grapefruit.
Me too.
I think that could have been a cool pick. Partially just because there's only one of them that felt a little bit like, oh boy. Also, the grapefruit's very good that we have. I don't think there is a real dud in here. I don't think there's a dud. I think I just wasn't feeling excited about these starches. I wasn't feeling inspired by them.
I think
so I didn't want to bet on them just because I felt an obligation to.
Yeah. Yeah, other things are occurring to me where I look at, I'm like, I was going to say like, oh, the mint, what could you do? And then I was like, oh, you could have gotten the ground beef and done like almost like a larb or something.
Yeah, oh, totally.
There's a lot of good stuff in here. I think to me, the one that felt the most like, some of them felt very linked to me where I was like, you couldn't pick apples if you didn't have the sausage.
Oh, really?
Does that make sense?
It does.
I just think about them in a little cast iron getting all browned.
For sure,
I don't know.
No.
Like apples does not exist in the same sort of like flavor universe as a lot of these other
beef?
things, I think. Yeah, no.
Yeah, no. I mean, but then also part of me feels like, wouldn't that be a fun challenge?
Totally.
Looking at those apples, I was thinking like, ooh, I don't know what I would do with these, but there's something very fun and exciting about the challenge of, and I've done a savory apple before.
Oh, for sure. Oh, absolutely. I love apple and savory preparations. No disrespect to apple.
No. Yeah. Yeah.
Green garlic, I feel like, was another sort of one where I was like, ooh, it's so
good.
I like it.
It's a beautiful ingredient.
But it's also like not, if you're only getting 6 things, it's just not that strong.
Yeah. It's
literally. I mean, it's just not that strong.
Yeah.
Interesting.
You want to be getting your money's worth.
Very interesting. So here we are at the end of the first inaugural ingredient draft.
Here we are.
Competition. Next episode, we're going to cook these literal dishes. We're going to eat these literal dishes. And then
we're going to scream at each other.
Wow. I'm so excited.
Me too. This is going to be
very fun. Okay, great. And then, so I got to choose what order we drafted in, and I went first. You get to choose which order we cook in.
Mm-hmm.
So either one of us will cook tomorrow and one of us will cook the following day.
Okay. I'm going to have you cook tomorrow, not because I perceive it to be a disadvantage, but because I have something tomorrow late afternoon. So for scheduling reasons.
Gotcha.
I'm going to have you cook tomorrow and I will cook on
Or I'm also always like,
night.
anytime on Top Chef, when they do Restaurant Wars, which, the greatest. I want to have a Restaurant Wars film festival where it's like only watching episodes of Restaurant Wars. Like, which is, for those of you that Top Chef uninitiated, an episode they have every season on Top Chef where they split up the 8 usually remaining chefs that are still on the show, get split up into teams of 4 and have to make a restaurant in 24 hours. And sometimes they have them do it both in the same day. And then sometimes they have one cook one day and the other cook the next day. And I'm always jealous of, well, on the one hand, you're like, first team up, you get to get it out of the way. But then on the other hand, I'm like, the other guy's got a day to plan, you know?
Yeah. Well, and you can just learn from what your competitor
and planning,
does wrong.
I think, is what you'll benefit the most from at this phase.
Especially knowing that like this now begins my planning phase, whereas you've already kind of done your planning phase.
Maybe.
To a degree. Which also, it's not like I need a ton of time for that phase.
Right.
You know.
But you also, I feel like based off of my ingredients now, as also like the judge, not just a competitor, you sort of, I feel like, have an idea of what I'm going to do.
I mean,
whereas I don't have a real idea of what you're going to do.
Me neither. Isn't that fun? And what is the experience of eating food that makes it gratifying? I mean, that's, again, part of what we're curating, Jesus.
And curating.
That's part of what we're curating, DC, is it's an experience. And
Curious
you want to make
and
people...
curating feels like the most obnoxious Instagram bio anyone could ever have. What a
Curious
dick.
curator.
Oh.
I'm a curious curator.
I hate them.
But yeah, no, I mean...
That's what we're curating.
You're creating an experience for someone, DC, and you want to give someone a feeling.
Right.
Part of that feeling can be discovery, can be delight, can be excitement.
Right.
All
of which are exciting things to have right now, when it's basically like, we could look at this as like, we have a lot of stuff to eat in our house. We're very excited and happy about it. But it's also like, this is the stuff we have in our fridge, so we got to figure out, in our pantry, so we got to figure out what to do with it. And this is a fun way to do that.
Yeah, dress it up. Have fun.
Absolutely. So tomorrow I will cook. I will get in the arena.
And I will judge. Fairly.
And then you get to, that's the thing, is it's reaction. You then get to react in some ways that I will not get to.
And you get the last taste in somebody's mouth. You know?
Mm-hmm. I do. I always think about that when they judge on Top Chef, where it's just sort of like, and then they go to the second restaurant. I'm always like, that one is a little bit.
Well, but then the disadvantage, I feel like, of being second is that everything you're doing is existing in context to the other meal. So everything you're putting up doesn't get its own evaluation. It gets, is this better than blank that we had last night?
Yeah.
Damn. So it's not purely an advantage.
True.
But I feel comfortable rising to that.
I'm so intimidated, you guys.
I'm not. I feel like I'm doing this bit with you, and then I'm like, I just meant it's gonna seem like I'm truly trying to be an asshole.
Because I respect you as a competitor. I like being on teams with you because you're a very strong competitor, and when I'm not on a team with you, I'm like, oh fuck. So it's exciting.
Well, we'll see. I mean, similarly, I feel the same way. I feel like when I find out you've been putting these little lists together all day, oh boy.
But I would have thought you would have known that.
I'm flying by the seat of my dang pants.
We put together a similar list going into our Top Chef draft.
Yes. I had an inkling, or
Right.
I'm not surprised to hear that you did make those little lists.
I had 4 paths, four worlds.
4 paths to victory.
And we'll see if any of them worked. I got my wish on one of them. Mm-hmm. Will I regret it?
That to me is the scariest thing. I feel like is being like, I made a plan. I'm getting all of everything is going my way.
I know. That's to
me that feels like a dangerous place to be.
Absolutely.
Just
Hubris
mentally.
Can sink in. And I don't feel any. I need you to know that I'm not feeling it right now. I'm feeling like, oh no, what did I do? I got what I wanted. Now what?
I'm glad I don't feel that way.
So that's it. The ingredient draft is in the books. Next, we move on to the competition. That will be next week. Join us then when we'll hear the cooking and the eating.
And the deterioration of our marriage.
Bye.
All right, that is it. That is all for this very special ingredient draft volume 1 edition of Stay for Dinner. Tune in next week to hear Haley and I cook the dishes that we come up with and then eat the dishes that we come up with. I'm very excited for that, and I am very excited to eat. So what else is new? If you like the show, please rate and subscribe it wherever you do that for podcasts. I know it's a thing you hear a lot on podcasts, but it really, really helps people find the show, or just straight up tell somebody you think would like the show about the show. I would really appreciate that. You can follow the show on Twitter at Stay for Dinner, on Instagram at Stay for Dinner Pod. I am on Twitter at DC Pierson, on Instagram at DEECEE Pierson. If you like me, I have written 2 books. One is called The Boy Who Couldn't Sleep and Never Had to. The other is called Crap Kingdom. You can order them now wherever you order books. I would normally say you could get them in an actual bookstore, but you know how that is right now. But independent booksellers are still out there, and so help them out, help me out, buy my book. That would be really cool. And then it's also available on audiobook, like on Audible and stuff like that, or on your e-reader or anything like that. If you like the show, I think there's a strong possibility that you will like my books. My interstitial music is by Advanced Bass, the amazing Owen Ashworth. My intro song is July 4th, 2004 by Jason Anderson. My podcast art is by Sarah Becan, Becan. Get her book, Let's Make Ramen, that she did with Hugh Amano. It's such an incredible comic cookbook. It's really, really neat. I think that's everything, other than if you have any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, you can email me at stayfordinnerpod@gmail.com. That's it. See you back here next week at this time for the ingredient draft cook-off. I can't wait.